never happy with how it looked.
It's the problem with Zoom. If we have live meetings, then I can't see myself and I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Well, so we're live.
How's your chick doing?
She's doing really well. That she's part of a study now, and
every laser treatments.
Yes, exactly. So I found them all roosting in a little row on their perch the other day, including the little chick. So I think she's just going to be like a normal chicken.
Oh, good. I'm glad that the treatment helped.
Yeah, it really. I know, it's amazing. Like I hear they have it for people too, and
really,
yeah, that like some chiropractors do it. So I think I may try to seek that out, like that. Just a laser treatment. It's not invasive or anything. Nothing like dry needling or the stuff they offer us.
I would like to see your results and tell us how that's working for you.
Right. I'll be able to perch with no problem.
That's true.
Yeah. That's what anyone wants. That's what I want. I just want to be able to perch with the others. So
I'm writing down the 3 things.
Oh, good.
We promised to give people 3 things that they should do before buying a car. Mm-hmm. And I hope it sparks some interest, because I think we hear a lot of stories when we're selling cars, and people, if they just made a little bit more of a plan, they'd probably be able to be more successful in their purchasing decisions or the leasing decisions, and maybe they could keep their cars longer.
Yeah, that or not, or know that they're not going to keep them as long when they start. That's it's an interesting thing how when people go to buy houses, like the bank makes you sit down and figure out your budget, basically. But when you buy a car, you don't necessarily have to do that. You don't have to think about so much like what you want and how much money, and that it's possible to buy a car as an impulse buy. And this is not. That's the reason that sometimes people will come in and they're like, well, I have this car and I really don't like it, or it really doesn't do what I need it to do, or it's way more expensive than I expected. And so we just come back to harping on planning, which is what we always do in these lives.
Mm-hmm. It seems to go back to planning quite a bit. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to our little Bonnie and Ronnie show. Today, we're going to talk about what 3 things you could do before you purchase a vehicle. And, I think it's going to probably expand out to about 6 different things, but we have 3 core things to talk about. And Bonnie and I discuss these things all the time. And we wonder.
Suddenly, I cannot hear you. I don't know if that's me or you. Testing. That seems to work. No, we don't have that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I had to reboot the microphone. So.
Oh, okay.
I'll start over. So basically, we want to give people ideas about thinking about their vehicles so they don't treat them like going to McDonald's. So many times I've heard people go out on a weekend and buy a car and they couldn't believe they did it. They don't understand why they bought the car. The payment's a lot higher than they expected it to be. And it's just a nightmare. Like they didn't like the experience and they didn't like what they ended up doing. And so we're just going to lay out 3 little things that you can do. You can write these things down. You can discuss amongst your families, like, we should do this before we even attempt to go start looking for a car. That about right, Bonnie?
That's about right.
So let's talk about them. They're going to sound really basic, guys, but we're going to flesh them out a little bit. So make a shopping list. Number 1 is make a shopping list. So, and I know that sounds probably pretty basic, but let me give you some more ideas. So when you're making your shopping list and you're in a car that you don't like anymore, it's getting old, or you have to trade it in for whatever reason, even if the car got totaled, you own that car. So the first thing I would say is write down the things you like about it. Mm-hmm. Write down what you like about that car. And it could be blind spot monitor. It could be, I love the way the seats fit. It could be the power. It could be whatever, because your personality is all that really matters for your happiness. So you got to write down the things you like about the actual car you're driving right now. B, write down the things that you don't like and you would like to have on the new car. So like, man, I really wish it had a backup camera. I really wish it had power running boards, or I really wish it could tow 10,000 pounds. All of these things, because the next step is what we're going to do is take these things and see if they fit. So anything else you can elaborate on the first step, Bonnie?
Well, just as a general thing, knowing what it is that you want makes it a lot easier to prioritize too. That, you may have to choose between a car that has a sunroof and a car that has, I don't know, I can't think of anything in particular, but it's helpful to know what it was that you really liked in the first place before you're faced with the car. And, it's like all romantic and interesting. So it's just good to have that list of what you like and don't like right off. Just going to make everything a whole lot easier.
I like it, and so now why do you need the list? So now we've taken you this far. You've made your list, what you like about your current car that you want to see on the next car, and then what you don't like about the car that you want on the next car. And it could be all-wheel drive. It could be all different types of things. But you're just going to make these lists. Because the second thing is develop a budget. Mm-hmm. Which I know, guys, it sounds basic, right? It sounds really basic. Like you need a budget when you go buy a car. You can't go there Saturday morning and not knowing what you can pay, not knowing what you can afford, and leave with a $700 payment and be at home debating that on Monday.
Right. At that point, it's too late.
It's too late. Once you drive off the lot, you own the car, you own the payments, everything. So now, how do you develop the budget? So basically, we're going to use the lists. So, how much is it to get an all-wheel drive car? I didn't have one before. So let's look at the marketplace and see. I'd like to have an all-wheel drive vehicle this time. I need a car that pulls 10,000 pounds. So if you need a vehicle that pulls 10,000 pounds, the truck or SUV, that's going to be an easy list to figure out. It's going to be Suburbans, Escalades. It's going to be F-150s. Diesel engine vehicle, stuff like that, which you can start looking at those things and you're like, well, these probably are they're either in your budget or they're out.
Right.
And so once you figure out that they're out, you just cross the thing off the list and move on. But I think that's where people get in trouble, Bonnie. They go in on Saturday with all of these wants and they get most of them. And then they didn't even have a budget. Like, you should know, I don't want to go over $500 a month. But when you leave there Saturday at $800 a month,
right,
it's done. So I think this is when where people get in trouble. They want their wants so much that they are willing to do anything to get it impulsively. Would you agree with that?
There's a lot of impulsivity that goes into buying a car that way. That and I think what ends up happening is like you end up building your life around the car. And
so they call it carpour. Right?
Carport, yeah, exactly. That so maybe try to remember, maybe bring a list along with you of all the other things you want to spend money on. That I want to travel, I want to build a deck on my house. Like these are all the things you won't be able to do if you spend too much on the car. So I guess for me, it ends up coming back to that romance of like the car is just so interesting at the moment that you're thinking of buying it, but it goes back to being a car as soon as it's been in your garage for a couple of months, and then you've got to sacrifice these other things for it. So be sure you want to do that. It's tedious to make these lists. I mean, nobody wants to like budget and do all those things, but it will allow you to do some of the other things that you want to do.
I like that, so here it's on Google, what should my car payment be? What's an ideal car payment? Mm-hmm. If you really don't know this stuff and you don't know what you can afford, first, you got to look at what you have coming in. Mm-hmm. So what's your income? So financial experts recommend keeping a total car cost below 15 to 20% of your take-home pay. So you got to see, it says take-home pay. So if you make 50 grand and you're taking home 38,000 after taxes, 15%, let's see, 38 grand times 15%, that's a $570 payment. I don't think many people making 50 grand would agree that they want to make a $570 payment.
Right.
So, it says if your monthly paycheck's $3,000, your car payment would be about $300. That's one thing I think you can do. That's an easy thing people can do. So you can look at your paycheck. If it's $3,000 first of the month, then that's 10%. 10% is 300.
Yeah.
So,
and that actually brings us to something else that we had talked about the knowing how many miles you drive. When when you're making that list, try to figure out how many miles a year are you really driving, because we may be able to, if you have $300 for a payment, leasing is another option that payments for leasing are cheaper than payments for buying the car outright.
We'll get to that in number 3. I definitely agree with you.
Oh, I see. You've organized it in a different way. So let me.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I think that right now it's just about the budget. Like how would you come up with a budget? How would you tell me, Ronnie, if you want to buy an SUV, how would you advise me and tell me this is what your budget should be for a car?
I would tell you to figure out what your expenses are and what your income is, and figure out if there's you'll be able to see really clearly that, yes, there's enough extra disposable income for this, or no, there is not, or yes, I'm willing to give up this other thing that I'm paying for in order to get this particular car. Once it's on paper, it's pretty easy to see. Yeah,
we could do a whole video on developing a budget, because your vehicle is part of your budget whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically going to end up costing you X amount of dollars for the rest of your life, even if you pay cash for cars.
Right.
You got to do the math, and you'll see that these things will cost you money for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to help people be more thoughtful with it. Like when you get ready to do something, let's not just see if we can do the transaction. Let's see if we can do the transaction, get the things you need, and also fit it in your budget, and keep the car if you're going to buy it, 5 to 6 years. I don't even think people think that far out when they're looking at cars. They're like, well, the car works today. I can afford the payment.
Yeah. It's a really nice car. I can afford the payment. That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was number 2. Number 3 was Bonnie's one. I really like this one, because tell them why we like this one.
Well, we like it because leasing is often a really good way to manage the car part of your budget, because it does cost less to lease a car per month than it does to buy a car, as a general rule, and it makes it a fixed cost across time. So exactly what you're going to be paying from month to month. The car's still under warranty, so if it has a problem, you take it in and it doesn't cost you anything. You're basically, what you're going to be paying for. So it makes it really easy to budget. And so that's, a lot of times people will come in and we'll talk about leasing and they'll say, oh, that's a good idea. But then we need to know how many miles you drive, because if you're driving 35,000 miles a year, it may not work out. But if you're only driving 12,000 miles a year, then it's a pretty good option.
Yeah. And what's funny is that we ask the question every day. And what answers do we get, Bonnie? When I say, hey, Bonnie, how many miles a year do you think you drive in your vehicle?
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe, I was driving a lot more before the pandemic. And that's generally people just don't know.
The pandemic has really thrown a wrench in there. So they really don't know. But even before the pandemic, people didn't know. Mm-hmm. And now this doesn't mean you have to lease a car. You should know how many miles you're driving a year so that you can budget for your car long term. If you're doing 15,000 miles a year, you're going to need to do specific service increments to take care of that car. They usually need service about every 15,000 miles. So
yeah, they do.
You're going to have to do things to make sure that you can keep this car running and not have to go out and buy another vehicle. These are the reasons why the trade cycle is 30 to 32 months. It's not because people just want a new car every 30 to 32 months. Is that there's so little planning that after 30 to 32 months, something happens, the car breaks down, we didn't know, and we have to do something right now.
Right.
And it makes life stressful. So if you could just think about these things, guys, and you can put your own ideas in the comments if you have them about making plans for your vehicles before you purchase it. I think you can get a lot more value for 8 or 9 years instead of just 30 to 32 months.
Yeah, that's for sure. That really, like anything else, if you take care of it, it lasts a lot longer. Same with your house. That's how I feel with my house. It's the same with your trees. I have a tree I didn't take care of, which now needs to be cut down. It's going to cost me $400. So that's how that works. Take care of things, they last longer. You take care of yourself, you last longer. We all know that.
What else would you add to the shopping list?
To the shopping list, let's see. So how are you really using the car? That I mean, like I know for myself, like I always have this vision of myself, and I'm like driving across the country in some sort of glamorous fashion, like a commercial. The reality is, I have done that once, and frankly, if I was going to do it again, I could rent a fancy car and and have the wind blowing through my hair. The reality of my life is that I drive to and from work and the grocery store, and that I. So it's helpful to know how you're really using the car to know how much you really want to spend.
This is important stuff. I love that because most people sit with us and want the car to fit what? Every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to jump cliffs. I race a lot. I can't be late for work. I got 8 kids and we pull a 15,000-pound camper. I'm like, okay, for $300 a month. It's like,
you can't do it.
What are you really using this car for? I mean, and that's the thing. Like when the budget is unlimited, then you can definitely get more. You can have it pull stuff, fit all the kids, have leather, have the cooling seats. You can do all kinds of stuff. But we've got to be realistic about our budget and decide really what fits and what are we using this car for. Stop dreaming. Stop dreaming about it.
I don't know that people have to stop dreaming, but I think it's helpful to understand that you have more options than just buying one car and making it fit all situations. That, you can rent a camper, you can rent a Cadillac, you can do all those things. And in the end, it ends up saving you a lot of money because it just costs so much to keep adding these things onto your vehicle.
And it also makes you rationalize because they'll look at this stuff and go, well, if you come in and you're like, I'm tired of my car because it's old and broke down all the time. And so I want something newer. I've got $500 a month, but I want all these check boxes. Check boxes are all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you start rationalizing. You're like, I can still do a 72-month loan on a 80,000-mile car today. Right. And then the whole plan goes out the window because I'm like, how many miles a year do you drive?
Right.
20,000 miles a year. So, okay. So next year that car will have 100 on.
Right.
And the next year 120, and you're still going to owe for 5 years.
Yeah, and this is something that we try to keep people from getting. It's just a bad situation to be in when you've got a car that you're still paying on and it's got problems that you're having to fix. So the maintenance and the payment costs just become a huge part of your budget.
Make a plan, guys. The shopping list will help you a lot. If you really start chopping it up, you're going to find out really quickly what you can live with and what you can't live without. And it's just going to be a little list, and it's going to be a backup camera, this, that, or the other. And it's got to have enough room for the kids. So all of those things that make our life stressful and the client's life stressful is when they try to check every single box.
Right.
What else would you add for budget? Like you manage money very, very well. And what else would you say about the budget?
Well, there was one other issue that does come up. So in Colorado, it's very expensive to register a new car. And unfortunately, we cannot tell you what it's going to cost you to register your car. That information is not available. So you need to be aware that it can be, if you buy a 2021 or a 2022, depending on what the vehicle is at this point, it could be between $400 and $1,200 just to get your plates.
To get the license plates. That has nothing to do with the taxes.
No, those are the fees for the plates. And then something that is more controllable that you can find out in advance is to find out what the insurance cost is going to be. So, if you're like me, it's not going to matter that much because, I'm a middle-aged lady just, driving a very small car. But if you've got teenagers or if you're a young person and you're driving a nice car, that insurance can really start to add up. It can be significant. So that's a good thing to know before you actually sign the paperwork.
Oh man, I know it's always such a shocker for people, but with just a few phone calls or just going online, you can get the answers to these questions before you even start the car search.
Yeah, you just give your insurance agent a call and they're happy to help you.
Yeah. So you add anything else about why finding out how many miles per year helps you plan for your vehicle?
Well, I think it helps you no matter, whether you're leasing or not, that it's just helpful to know that, can I have a car that is less reliable because I'm not really, I'm only driving to and from church. And if my car doesn't work that Sunday, it doesn't matter so much. But if it's I mean, I'm not sure I'm making any sense here, but
I
but
think you're making sense. I mean, people need to look at it, right?
if you're driving a lot, that's going to affect, it's going to affect what kind of car you want to buy and whether or not it's going to, if you're buying the car, sometimes people are concerned about resale value. There's a lot to think about with the number of miles that you're driving.
I mean, if you asked me, like I've had people ask me, when's the ideal time to get rid of my vehicle? I'm like, well, right around 80,000 miles, because after that, the value just never seems to recover. It starts to continuously degrade until the car is worth nothing. At 80,000 miles, it's still a viable unit. It's something that has desire for other purchasers. And so think about it. If you know how many miles you're driving per year, if you have your list, you have your budget all planned out, you can forecast when you're going to need a car. It doesn't have to be some surprise that we need a car now. It's like, no, we knew that this was going to happen in about 5 years because of how many miles we drive, and we're ready, and now we want to get rid of the vehicle while it's at its apex of its value, and we can move on to the next unit and be happy with it.
Right.
But we see that very little, guys. It's usually just impulsive, and we don't know what we can afford. We don't know how many miles we're driving. We just need to do a transaction right now.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes people come in and they need cars right away, and like trying to collect all this information at the last minute when it's an emergency. It's something that you could think about in advance. If you're a good planner, you'll think about it in advance.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just trying to spark this energy in people to actually start thinking about their vehicles as something more than just something they got to drive. And we have to do it, but we like doing it and making it fun. How many people have told you they want to get their dream car? They're coming in and I'm ready for my dream car. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't look like a dream car you were driving, but now we need the dream car. And the budget is 400. Dream cars are 900 a month, so like, it's like, okay, do you really need a dream car? Put that on the list,
Right. And be aware that it's hard to go back. That, if you've been driving a car with, ventilated and heated seats and, all kinds of like really nice features, it's hard to go back to a base model vehicle. So
backup cameras changed the game. Everybody from 17 on was like, we really need a backup camera. I'm like, okay, they're standard now, but
they are. You
jump in a car that doesn't have one, and it's shocking. It's like, wow, how do I back this thing up? I got to actually turn and look,
Yeah, that's right. And my car doesn't have one. And so it's, and my car's it's about 5 years old. And so if you're buying an older car, that's something that may or may not be in the vehicle. You want to know how many miles are on that car? How many miles I drive per year?
Well, how many miles do you drive a year, Bonnie? And how many miles are on that car?
I drive 5,000 miles a year. There's 26,000 miles on my car.
And it's like a 16?
Yep.
Yeah, I drive about 800 miles a month. Which is
wow.
800 times 12, 9,600 miles a year. And
not bad.
Yeah, I don't go anywhere. I go to work and I go home.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly how it is. I go to work, I go home.
But we know, and I plan services on the vehicle based on different mileage increments, and I know when I'm going to hit those things.
Right.
Which also allows me to put money aside, knowing that service is coming up, so that it's not a shocker. I mean, it happens to people a lot. I can't believe I got to do the service. I'm like, really? What? How did that happen? We knew the car was getting more miles and getting older.
Right. Right. That's and I don't think this means that people will stop. It's not necessary. I don't think it's necessarily necessary that people are, like, well, we're going to buy the car and then we're going to sell it at exactly 3 years with so many thousands of miles. And you don't have to go to that extent of doing the calculations. It's just when you're buying the car, it's helpful to have an idea of all of these things, what you really want, what you like and don't like, how many miles you really drive, how this is really going to fit in your budget. And, are you willing to make the car the center of the budget or not? And if not, then how much can you really afford?
Yeah, I like that. You're right. You don't have to have it all written out, guys. And as a matter of fact, Bonnie will help you with it. I'll help you with it. They're challenging questions, but we can walk you through these little things. And maybe we'll do a whole video, Bonnie, just on this is exactly how we would plan a car deal, before we start shopping for one.
Video, but okay.
It's probably pretty boring, but like, here's your checklist, here's everything you need to do.
But we could. Maybe it would be helpful. We could do it.
Well, thanks for joining me today. Sam joined us from New York. And, if you guys have any questions, just drop it in the comments. We would be happy to answer them. And these are just our thoughts. They're not the law.
No, we do not make laws.
Yeah.
We make suggestions, you make decisions. That's our motto.
We make decisions, right. So I hope it was helpful. You got anything else, Bonnie?
No, that's that. Now I got to go back to looking at my chickens.
All right. We'll take care of them and check in later.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good day.